about soccer, and I wish I could just walk home with him down our path to the condos like we used to. But instead, he puts his hands on the sides of my shoulders, and I say thanks, then climb up the steps to the bus back to Evergreen Road. Aliana's in the first spot behind the bus driver, and instead of walking to the middle where I like to sit, I throw my backpack in the seat across the aisle from her and sit down. "I can't believe you don't have a girls' soccer team here," she says. "That doesn't even make sense. The middle school where I would have gone in Brooklyn has an A, B, and C team." At first, I want to say, yeah, that I can't believe it either. But the more she's talking about Brooklyn and all her soccer teams, the more I'm wishing I had taken my seat in the middle. "I would have been on the A team," she says, and smiles, "since I played all summer." Then she huffs a big sigh and asks, "What do girls even do here?" And now I'm mad. Mad at Measley, mad at Evergreen Road, mad at Brooklyn for having 3 soccer teams, mad at Aliana for coming to our town because it might not be Brooklyn, but I actually kind of like it. And I'm thinking, what do girls do here? They prune apple trees and tap maples and learn CPR because the closest hospital is far. They wear pants that fit and sweatshirts that go over both shoulders and boots that can actually get muddy. "You're the one who came here for a quieter, slower life," I say. She raises up her eyebrows like she's trying to figure out where that came from and what the heck is wrong with me. But what the heck is wrong with me is that she thinks she can come here and be all MVG, and none of it even matters because Principal Measley won't give either of us number 10 on the boys' team anyway. "Maybe you should have stayed in Brooklyn where all the soccer teams are." Now her eyes turn down and she bites on her lip a little, and I think she might even look like she's going to cry. Then she says, "Fine," and sits back hard against the seat and crosses her arms over her chest. I can't think of anything else to say, and she's looking out the window now anyway, so I turn toward my window too, and we ride the rest of the way home like that, looking in opposite directions. We get off at Evergreen, and Bryce lingers with Morris, while Aliana hurries off toward our houses, and I do too. I'm keeping up with her fast-clacking boots, and they sound mad again. She picks up the pace, and so do I, and I'm thinking we probably look like those professional race walkers that Tucker made us watch in the last Summer Olympics. We're both a little out of breath when we get to our houses. I turn left to go in my driveway, and she turns right to go in hers. And I'm fiddling with the garage code when I hear her strike a soccer ball against her fancy bounce-back net. She's kicking hard, nailing each ball with her instep, then following through and landing square over her quad and the toe of her left brown boot. Like maybe she's mad at more than just Measley, or missing more than just her 3 soccer teams. I watch her trap the ball. "Guess we'll be on the boys' team then." She says it to the ball, but loud enough for me to hear. Bryce is walking up the street now, and I'm picturing playing on his team with Kenny and Morris and Mac and Wyatt and all the 7th and 8th grade boys who probably won't pass to me. It makes my hands clench into fists. "No," I call across to Aliana's yard. Then I walk back to the end of my driveway. "We need to make a plan. This is some bullsharky." She laughs when I say bullsharky, but then she flips the ball up, sticks it beneath her arm, walks to the end of her driveway, and says, "I'm in." She pulls a cell phone from her pocket. "I'll text you after dinner. What's your number?" I think of everything Mom tells me about cell phones, how they keep you from knocking on doors and looking into faces. And if there's one thing an Embers can do, it's knock on doors and look into faces. I roll my eyes when Mom tells me this stuff, but I say it to Aliana right now anyway. "I live right here. I'll just knock on your door." She slides her phone back in her pocket and nods. A car passes on the road between us, and Bryce is opening the door in the garage to let Dodger and Roscoe out, and Cameron and Tucker are already inside. I say later to Aliana, and we both turn toward our houses. Before I get to the garage, I'm thinking I'm going to ask my mom about a cell phone again, because if Aliana has one, why shouldn't I? Mom is hanging one of the Valentine's paintings above the couch. She has a hammer stuck in the elastic waist of her maternity pants and a nail between her teeth. "Hey, kids," she lisps around the nail. "Is this straight?" And I'm wondering if she means kids like her kids, like we're all her kids now because they got married and we live together, or if she's just saying kids because we're all under 18. Tucker rushes over and grabs the frame from her. "Here, I'll hold it. You look." She steps back between Cameron and me. "Down an inch." Then she hands Tucker the hammer and nail, and he makes a little mark on the wall and hangs the painting. Bryce comes back in with the dogs, and Cameron starts digging through the cabinets for snacks, and Mom pulls me down on the couch and says, "How's middle school?" I'm telling her about Principal Measley, and how he said 11 isn't enough, and Mom slams her thigh with her open hand and says, "No." And I want to tell her about Aliana, and how she seems kind of show-offy with her Brooklyn clothes and jumping off swings and thinking she's going to be number 10. But Bryce is in the kitchen, elbow deep in a huge family value bag of chips, and I'm sure he's listening to everything I'm saying. "So what happens next?" Mom asks. I shrug because I don't really want to tell her I'm going to Aliana's after dinner to figure out a plan. I don't want her to get all excited about me making a new friend, because it's not like that. But then, Big Mouth Bryce crunches another fistful of chips and says, "So are you and A like friends now? I saw you talking outside." I give him a scowl. "Is that the girl from across the road?" Mom asks. "Yeah, she signed up for soccer too," I tell her. "I'm going over after dinner to figure out how to get a manager and one more player. That's it, though." Mom gives me a nod, and Bryce says, "She seems nice." I shoot back, "You also think Kenny and Morris are nice." "They are," he says. "To who?" "Okay, you two." Mom cuts us off, and Bryce leaves the chips open on the counter, picks up Fred, and heads upstairs to his room. Cameron and Tucker sit at two of the kitchen stools, and Cameron's talking about an assignment that he thinks is totally unfair. "It's for behavioral science," he says. "It's supposed to be an easy A class, but then Miss Greggs tells us today that we each have to take a 2-day turn with this fake baby doll thing that cries all the time." I laugh and ask what that has to do with school. And Cameron tells me that they're studying something called development, which is basically how our brains grow, and there's a whole unit on infants and their needs. "They lock this key around our wrist that you have to hold in the doll's back in the right position, depending on what it needs, like a new diaper or a bottle or something." "Huh," Mom says. "I wish it worked like that. Believe me, real babies don't come with some magical key." Tucker says, "Just put it in the basement under a bunch of blankets or something. I mean, it's not like it's real." I'm thinking that's a good idea, but Cameron explains that the doll has a computer in it that records all the stuff you do and don't do, like if it gets shaken, or how long it takes you to get it to stop crying. "Give the key to some girl who wants to babysit," Tucker says. Cameron shakes his head. "They lock it on you with this special zip tie thing that comes with the doll, and if it's cut, you fail." Mom laughs again and says, "Well, you'll have to figure it out then." "I'm a swimmer, though," he says. "I can't take a fake baby to morning practice and have it crying on the deck. Plus, I have a bunch of college visits coming up, and there's no way I'm taking some doll to an interview." Mom rubs her belly. "Well, you'll be all trained and certified for your baby sibling." Wendell comes home, and we have dinner around the big table in our same seats. Cameron tells Wendell and Bryce what he told us about his behavioral science assignment, and Bryce can't stop cracking up. And Wendell says,
"You have a point. You can't take a crying fake baby to a college interview."
Mom cuts right in.
"What do you mean he can't? He certainly can." "It's not real, Louise. What's he going to do? Introduce the doll to the Stanford recruiter who has flown across the country to see him swim, then ask him to hold it while he shows off his butterfly in the pool with a key flapping off his wrist?"
We all laugh at the image, but Mom says,
"If that's what he has to do, then yes."
Wendell gives her a look like,
"You're kidding, right?"
and she gives him one back that says, "Not even a little bit." And we all get quiet.
"I think Miss Greggs is trying to teach them responsibility,"
Mom says. Then Wendell looks down at his plate and shakes his head.
"The boys understand responsibility. Too much. I just want him to go to swim practice and have a college interview without a baby in his arms."
For a second, I think my mom is going to fire back because she's in embers. But instead, she looks him right in his eyes and says,
"I didn't mean. It's fine."
And I know Wendell wants to move on and have everything be okay, and not think about how Cameron and Tucker know a lot about raising a baby already. A real baby. Their baby brother. And he didn't come with a magical key. Mom shifts her weight and takes a deep breath, and I can tell the baby's kicking her. I can even see its little foot moving under Mom's stretchy top. Wendell raises his eyebrows.
"Everything all right?"
"Yeah," Mom says, and rubs her belly.
"Just feisty, and wants in on this conversation, seeing as how they're the actual baby of the family."
That makes everyone laugh and start talking about other things and eating again. After we clear the table and fill the dishwasher, I tell Mom I'm going to Eliana's to make a plan. She puts her arms on my shoulders and says okay. Wendell has 100 questions, but Mom says she'll fill him in on all the soccer news later, and I pull on a sweatshirt and my sneakers and head out. I knock on Eliana's door, and her mom answers and welcomes me in, and she seems nice now, even though she stopped me from shoving Morris at the bus stop. I take off my shoes and say, "Thanks for having me over." And the whole time I'm wishing I had just walked 28 steps to Maximilian's condo, where I don't ever have to knock or thank his grandparents for having me over, because they always say,
"Mi casa es tu casa."
And Mom always says the same thing to Maximilian. And that means that we can come and go and eat whatever we want from any of the cabinets. Her mom calls Eliana, and she comes downstairs. "Hey." "Hey," I say. I follow her to the kitchen, where there are 2 stools. She sits on one of them and pulls over a notebook. "Let's make the list first," she says. She writes girls' team on the top, and then A. Absalon, because it seems like she always has to be first. She slides the notebook over to me, and I'm thinking of writing my name above hers, but I can hear Grandma's voice saying,
"Quit that hogwash, Bee."
So I just forget it and add B. Embers to the list. "You know the rest?" she asks. "There's Georgia from our class, and Tess, and who else?" I remember all 11, because I've known some since kindergarten, and because I can still see their names written on the soccer sign-ups before Principal Measley folded it up and stuffed it in his pocket. Girls' team. A. Absalon. B. Embers. Georgia Ludlow. Quinn Williams. Fern Mandley. Tess Rogers. Emmy Powers. Jamie Burgess. Nell Emerson. Micah Bond. Kara Elroy. We look over the list. "Okay, we just need to get 2 more girls," A says. "And one of them doesn't even have to play. They just have to write down numbers and make sure all our soccer balls are accounted for at the end of practice." "I don't know why we have to have a manager," I say. "I swear Measley's just trying to make it impossible." "He's the worst." "You don't even know." Is there anyone who's not already on the list that we can call to convince? She asks. Her cell phone is next to her on the counter, and she taps her fingers on it. The screen lights up to show a picture of her and her mom in the background. I scan the 11 names. All the girls from rec last year are on the list, and Georgia told me that all the 7th and 8th graders who quit the boys' team last year signed up too. I'm trying to think of any other girls in our school who might join the team, and it's harder than coming up with things that start with B. You can't think of anyone? She asks. Not really. Her phone vibrates, and I look over at the screen. It says, Dad, and Aliana presses decline. Then we need to go around school and ask people to sign up until we get 2 more, she says. Tomorrow morning, I tell her, because we can't waste any time with someone like Measley. Her mom, who is in the other room typing on her computer, looks up and says, I can drive you early if you want, so you can catch kids coming off the buses. I can be here at 7:45, I say, if that's okay.
You're welcome any time, Bee,
her mom says and smiles. And that's not the same as mi casa es tu casa, but it feels nice. On the way out, I see one of those professional pictures of Aliana. She looks a lot younger and is kneeling in her soccer uniform with a ball under her arm. Number 10. I've been number 10 since 3rd grade, she tells me. I have since 2nd, I tell her, even though it's not true. We didn't actually get numbers until 4th grade. But I don't want her thinking that she can move to my town and keep her number. That's not how it works. The next morning,